A-N. This is a desk. The desk is heavy. Abacus. There were no electronic calculators at that time and we used abacuses. Abandon. We had to abandon the old car. Abandonment. The government is trying to prevent abandonment of children. Abase. He abased himself and did what he had been ordered to do. Abash. He abashed her by asking questions concerning her private life. Abate. The wind abated. Abatement. Noise abatement is a very important issue nowadays. Abattoir. The pigs were sent to the abattoir. Abbreviate. The United States is often abbreviated to the US. Abbreviation. NASA is an abbreviation for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Abdicate. The king abdicated when he married a divorcee. Abdomen. She felt a sharp pain in the abdomen. Abdominal. I need to build up my abdominal muscles if I want to wear a bikini in the summer. Abduct. The Prime Minister's son was abducted by terrorists last night. Abecedarian. This issue might be too complex for an abecedarian. Aberrant. He does his best to understand her aberrant behavior. Aberration. Economists said the figure was an aberration and they kept repeating that inflation was moderating. Abet. The accountant was accused of aiding and abetting her boss in the fraud. Abettor. The abettor of a crime is equally guilty as the perpetrator. Abeyance. The matter is in abeyance. Abhor. I abhor all forms of discrimination. I think we should fight it. Abhorrent. Who could have committed such an abhorrent crime? Abide. I can't abide him. He's so annoying. Abiding. She has a deep and abiding love for her parents. Ability. She didn't have the ability to say no. Abject. Afterwards, he wrote an abject apology to her. Abjure. She abjured her beliefs when all of her family members died in a car crash. Ablaze. His eyes were ablaze with excitement when he was talking about his plans. Able. She was able to program her computer. Ablution. Ablution is a crucial part of this ceremony. Abnegation. The monk led a life of total abnegation. Abnormal. He had an abnormal level of testosterone. Aboard. There were only 5 passengers aboard. Abode. He has no fixed abode. He moves to a new place almost every month. Abolish. Slavery was abolished in the mid-19th century in America. Abolition. They fight for the abolition of capital punishment. Abominable. This region experienced abominable cruelty during the war. Abominate. Sarah abominated that man after he had run her little dog over. Aboriginal. Aboriginals make up more than half the population of this Canadian town. Aborigine. Aborigines arrived to Australia approximately 40,000 years ago. Abort. The doctors decided to abort the fetus in order to save the mother. Abortion. The number of illegal abortions has recently increased. Abortive. After several abortive attempts, they finally reached the summit of Mont Blanc. Abound. Theories abound about how to prevent cancer. About. What are you talking about? Above. A bird flew above our heads. Abracadabra. I can't listen to this abracadabra any longer. Abrade. The river gradually abrades the banks. Abrasion. This material protects the surface of the machine from abrasion. Abreast. They stood in line abreast. Abridge. The manuscript must be abridged. Abridged. They also published an abridged edition of the book for children. Abridgment. I haven't read the full version, just an abridgment. Abroad. My brother wants to study abroad. Abrogate. The treaty was abrogated after 15 years. Abrogation. The company permitted the abrogation of all contracts. Abrupt. We heard an abrupt scream coming from the street. Abruptly. The car stopped abruptly in the middle of the road. Abscess. The liver abscesses require drainage until the abscess cavity is resolved. Abscond. The thief absconded with our silver. Absence. The absence of snow during last winter was quite surprising. Absent. She was absent from school last week. Absenteeism. The high level of absenteeism is the main problem of our company. Absent-minded. She was so absent-minded that day that she forgot about her dream job interview. Absinthe. At that time, absinthe was very popular among artists, musicians, and writers. Absolute. There was absolute silence in the room. Absolution. The priest gave the dying man absolution. Absolve. The priest absolved her from her sins. Absorb. This sponge absorbs water well. Absorbed. He was absorbed in a book. Absorbing. Jack was telling us such an absorbing story that we forgot to leave on time. Absorption. Drinking alcohol can decrease absorption of this drug. Abstain. He abstains from alcohol for religious reasons. Abstemious. The monk was so abstemious that he ate only once a day. Abstract. The abstract shows black lines and colorful squares on a white background. Abstracted. What did you say? She asked with an abstracted stare. Abstruse. The paper is really abstruse. I didn't understand much of it. Absurd. He strongly opposes the new law, saying it's absurd. Absurdity. She was struck by the absurdity of the situation. Abundance. Northern England has an abundance of coal. Abundant. We still have an abundant supply of water. Abuse. The abuse of alcohol contributes to many deaths per year in the United States. Abusive. He argued that foster homes are always abusive. Abut. England abates on Scotland. Abysmal. They lived in abysmal poverty. Abyss. We stood before the abyss of the canyon admiring the breathtaking scenery. Academic. Many academics argue that colleges should receive more money and that their salaries should be increased. Exceed. We needed to accede to that request. Accelerate. The car accelerated and hit a tree. Accent. He put the accent on the wrong syllable. Accentuate. The tight dress accentuated her thin waist. Accept. She accepted the gift. Acceptable. The price of this car is not acceptable. Acceptance. The government announced its formal acceptance of the project. Acceptor. Who is your acceptor for this transaction? Access. I don't have access to such information. Accessibility. Plain language and interesting plot add to the accessibility of the book. Accessible. The factory is easily accessible by road and rail. Accession. Russia has changed a lot since Putin's accession to power. Accessory. She likes to wear many colorful accessories. Accident. He was injured in a car accident. Accidental. Two men were wounded by an accidental discharge of a gun. Accidental death. The expert witness told the jury it was an accidental death, not murder. Acclaim. Her last novel was acclaimed by literary critics. Acclaimed. He's a famous author of many critically acclaimed novels. Acclamation. The crowd greeted her with loud acclamation. Acclivity. Our car couldn't make it up the acclivity. Accolade. This prize is considered to be the highest accolade in show business. Accommodate. We have booked a room to accommodate our guests. Accommodating. Don't hesitate to ask him for help. He's very accommodating. Accommodation. Our company provides accommodation to students. Accompany. The disease is usually accompanied by headache. Accomplice. The detectives suspect he was Smith's accomplice in the murder. Accomplish. After several months they managed to accomplish the task. Accord. The results are in accord with the predictions. Accordance. It needs to be done in accordance with the procedure. According to. According to the passengers, the driver fell asleep. Accordingly. He is an excellent translator and is paid accordingly. Accordion. The musician stood in the street playing the accordion. Accost. She was accosted by 3 men that forced her to give them all her money. Account. I will give an account of what happened as soon as I'm able to. Account executive. We are going to hire a new account executive. Account number. I will send the money to your bank account, so give me your account number, please. Accountability. The Prime Minister should think about his accountability to the people. Accountable. The government should be accountable to the society. Accountancy. I think I should concentrate on accountancy. Accountant. After I finish school, I want to be an accountant. Accounting. Accounting is currently a very popular profession. Accounts. She's the one in charge of our company's accounts. Accoutre. Our army is well accoutred by the government. Accoutrements. A truncheon belongs to the accoutrements of a police officer. Accredit. This school was not accredited by the government to train licensed massage therapists. Accreditation. The Commission is responsible for the accreditation of medical schools. Accredited. He's an accredited representative of the Language Commission in Helsinki. Accretion. The fund was increased by the accretion of £5 million. Accrual. The company's accrual of benefits for the last 3 years has been more than satisfactory. Accrue. Interest will accrue at a constant rate. Accumulate. The work keeps accumulating. Accuracy. The accuracy of this estimation is limited. Accurate. The measurements were very accurate. Accuse. Don't accuse me, it wasn't my fault. Accuser. Many accusers say they believe the headmaster beat students. Accustom. I can't accustom myself to the new place. Accustomed. She isn't accustomed to being treated like this. Ace. In this game an ace beats a king. Acephalus. In the picture you can see typical acephalus worms whose life functions we'll discuss later on. Acerbic. He had a talent of criticizing politicians with acerbic wit. Acerbity. He was famous for the acerbity of his reviews, which authors admired and feared at the same time. Acetic. The acetic acid in vinegar irritates my stomach. Ache. That ache in my back is really annoying. Achieve. Thanks to her persistence she achieved her goal. Acid. Vinegar is an example of acid. Acid rain. It's an industrial area, so acid rains are unfortunately very common here. Acidic. The apples aren't fully ripe, so they might taste a bit acidic. Acidulous. The fruit is acidulous, so you might choose to sprinkle it with a little sugar. Acknowledge. You need to acknowledge her effort. She helped us a lot. Acknowledgement. He never expressed acknowledgement of the problem. Acme. His landscapes were deemed the acme of beauty. Acne. Acne is a common problem among teenagers. Acolyte. The Mass was celebrated by one priest with the assistance of 4 acolytes. Acorn. The children were collecting acorns and conkers. Acoustic. We chose this hall because of its acoustic properties. Acoustics. We need to find a venue with better acoustics. Acquaint. You need to acquaint yourself with our policies. Acquaintance. I found out about the event from my acquaintance. Acquainted. Were you acquainted with my sister, Lucy? Acquiesce. The maestro acquiesced to the request for an encore. Acquiescence. He gave his acquiescence eagerly. Acquiescent. He was too acquiescent to challenge authority. Acquire. She acquired a new painting. Acquired. Lamarck believed that acquired characteristics can be passed on. Acquisition. Dali's very last painting is a recent acquisition by the gallery. Acquisitive. We live in an acquisitive society in which the craving for material things seems never satisfied. Acquit. The suspect was acquitted of murder charges. Acquittal. Of the 9 cases that went to trial, only 3 ended in acquittals. Acquittance. The judge announced the decision about their acquittance. Acre. She's got 500 acres of land in Spain. Acres. Her acres include a pond and an orchard. Acrid. She could no longer stand his acrid remarks and started crying. Acrimonious. The acrimonious dispute continued for many hours. Acrimony. The acrimony of the dispute between the 2 parties shocked many people. Acrobat. The children were thrilled with the acrobat's performance. Acronym. The NASA acronym stands for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Across. She looked across the room at the clock. Across the board. The management is planning across the board pay increases. Act. An act of aggression. Acting. I'm an acting manager during my boss's maternity leave. Action. Most of the action takes place in Berlin. Action-packed. His latest book is a compelling action-packed thriller. Activate. The alarm was activated by cigarette smoke. Activation. Mechanical pressure may result in activation of the bomb. Active. He is still very active despite his age. Activity. I like outdoor activities such as cycling. Actor. My favorite actor is Mel Gibson. Activist. The activist got involved in a human rights campaign. Actress. She won an Oscar for the Best Actress. Actual. The actual temperature differed from the predicted one. Actually. No one actually saw the shark. Actuary. He works as an actuary and cooperates with several insurance companies. Actuate. When he sued his former employer, he was actuated by desire for revenge. Acumen. A manager needs to have good business acumen. Acute. The pain was so acute I could barely speak. Ad nauseum. He played the song ad nauseum. Ad valorem. The goods were taxed ad valorem. Adage. As the old adage says, practice makes perfect. Adagio. They played the adagio too quickly. Adamant. I begged her to change her decision, but she remained adamant. Adapt. We need to adapt our program to the new operating system. Adaptable. This fish is adaptable to many different water conditions. Adaptation. She starred in a film adaptation of a best-selling novel. Add. Please add more spices to the cake. Addendum. In the Addendum to Section A, you will find a detailed statistical analysis. Addict. He'd been a heroin addict for 2 years until he decided to embark on a detox program. Addicted. He is addicted to cocaine. Addiction. Alcohol addiction is a serious social problem. Addictive. This drug is highly addictive. Addition. With his experience, he will be a useful addition to the team. Additional. We need some additional dishes. Additive. We don't use artificial additives. Addle. I think the heat has addled your brains. Addled. This task is too difficult for his alcohol-addled brain. Add-on. I've bought the newest add-on to that application. Address. The president gave an address to his supporters. Addressee. Who is the addressee of this letter? Adduce. None of the evidence adduced convinced me. Adduction. Recommended exercises include leg rotation and adduction. Adept. He is an adept juggler. Adequate. The food wasn't adequate. Adhere. You need to adhere to the rules. Adherent. He's an adherent of the Catholic Church. Adhesive. I've bought a strong adhesive to mend the broken table. Adipose. The newest research on treating obesity will help people with weight issues control the adipose tissue in their bodies. Adjacent. We work in adjacent buildings. Adjoin. Mexico adjoins the U.S. Adjoining. Me and my friend would like to stay in adjoining rooms. Adjourn. The meeting was adjourned at 11. Adjournment. New evidence in the case resulted in adjournment of the trial. Adjudicate. The father adjudicated the son's dispute over their inheritance. Adjunct. Teaching English is just an adjunct to my office work. Adjunct professor. Contracts of 4 adjunct professors at our college will expire this month. Adjuration. Joan's public adjuration for help remained unresponded. Adjure. She adjured him to tell the truth. Adjust. We must adjust to the bad economic situation. Adjuster. He used to work as an adjuster. Adjustment. The machine still needs a few adjustments. Adjutant. He served in the British Army as an adjutant. Ad-lib. His ad-lib comment showed poor judgment. Admin. Irregular plural, admin. Admass. We have to base our advertising campaign on the admass. Administer. She administers the funds. Administration. The administration of the company's affairs is highly centralized. Administrative. The organization is experiencing some administrative problems. Administrator. He is a school administrator. Admirable. The world's first voyage around the world by hot air balloon was an admirable achievement. Admire. I've always admired her for her patience. Admission. Admission to the conference is by ticket only. Admit. He admitted there were production problems. Admonish. The boss admonished her for being late yesterday. Admonition. Despite his parents' admonitions for him to become a lawyer, he decided to be an artist. Admonitory. The teacher gave the student an admonitory look. Adieu. So without further ado, let me introduce you to tonight's speaker. Adobe. People in this African village live in adobe huts. Adolescence. Despite his troubled adolescence, he's a successful man now. Adopt. She adopted the Jewish faith. Adoption. Our attempts have failed, so I think it's time for adoption of a different strategy. Adorable. My 3-year-old niece is so adorable. Adoration. The priest said a prayer of adoration. Adore. He just adored his wife and never really recovered from her death. Adorn. The church has been beautifully adorned for the wedding. Adornment. The flowers are enough, the tables don't need any additional adornment. Adroit. He's an adroit negotiator. Adulate. The pop star was adulated by her fans. Adulation. The book won adulation from critics and readers. Adult. My 10-year-old son likes talking to adults. Adulterate. They were accused of adulterating beer with water. Adulteration. The dairy company has been under pressure since the affair connected with the adulteration of milk with water by one of his employees. Adultery. She divorced him after she found out he had committed adultery. Adumbrate. This report adumbrates the project's objectives. Advance. He listened for the advance of the troops. Advanced. The school uses advanced teaching methods. Advantage. The main advantage of paying with a credit card is that you don't need to carry money with you. Advent. Before the advent of the computer era, calculating the salaries was a painstaking task. Adventitious. They had to decide whether his misconduct was adventitious or was it the result of a flaw in his character. Adventure. Our trip to Kenya was a wonderful adventure. Advergame. Companies often use online advergames to promote their brands. Adversary. She skillfully countered her adversary's arguments. Adverse. She needed to work in quite adverse circumstances. Adversity. I admire his courage in adversity. Advert. We adverted to the issues at hand. Advertecture. The advertecture covers most of the building's wall. Advertise. They are heavily advertising their new product. Advertisement. I don't like watching advertisements at the cinema. Advertising. He has worked in advertising for 10 years. Advertorial. Advertorials often deceive elder people. Advice. My best advice would be to book the ticket in advance. Advice note. Please refer to the attached advice note. Advisable. Extreme caution is advisable. Advise. I advised her about the regulations. Advisedly. He used that word advisedly. Advisory. Her function was purely advisory. Advocate. He advocates the idea of higher taxes. Aegis. The exhibition was held under the aegis of UNESCO. Eon. Oh, that happened eons ago. Aerate. You'll need to aerate water in the tank if you want your fish to stay alive. Aerial. I couldn't watch the match because the wind blew the aerial off the roof. Aeronautics. He became a pilot because he'd been always interested in aeronautics. Aeroplane. The airplane landed. Aesthete. She's an aesthete that appreciates good art. Aesthetic. This way of depicting women was typical of the Baroque aesthetic. Aesthetics. Traditional aesthetics assume the existence of universal criteria of artistic value. Affable. I'm sure you're going to like him, he's an affable type of a person. Affair. He had a lot of important affairs to take care of. Affect. Will the new rules affect me? Affectation. Her whole behavior was mere affectation. Affected. Oh, it's you, he said with an affected laugh. Affection. She had a deep affection for her mother. Affectionate. He gave her a long affectionate kiss. Affidavit. He swore in an affidavit that he had never seen the man before. Affiliate. They affiliated with the national group. Affiliation. They have many affiliations with organizations abroad. Affinity. He's got an affinity for maths and science. Affirm. The suspect affirmed that he spent all evening with his wife. Affirmation. That solution is an affirmation of his intelligence. Affix. He affixed a glossary to the book. Afflatus. I suddenly felt a divine afflatus and wrote a poem. Afflict. She was afflicted by the death of her parents. Affliction. She was lively and cheerful despite the afflictions of old age. Affluence. Car ownership is frequently used as an indicator of affluence. Affluent. He's an affluent banker. Afford. I can't afford to spend 2 hours with him. Affordable. We are trying to find an affordable hotel in Lisbon. Affray. John was charged with causing an affray. Afraid. Originally the firm wanted to buy a ship, but finally they decided it would be much cheaper to simply affreit one. Affreightment. The contracts of affreightment that we signed were illegal. Affricate. The J sound in joy is an affricate. Affront. He affronted him by calling him an ignorant. Aficionado. He's an aficionado of fine wines. He knows all possible types. Afloat. The company needed to take a loan in order to stay afloat. Aforementioned. The aforementioned Mr. Williams was waiting in the corridor. Afraid. I'm afraid of spiders. African. Africans still face low life expectancy and poverty. After. I go for a walk every day after work. After hours. He often works after hours. Aftercare. He survived the dangerous surgery, but the improper aftercare caused severe complications which resulted in his death. Afterclap. It was an afterclap of their decision. Aftermarket. A movie in the DVD aftermarket. Aftermath. The extremist parties might receive more votes in the aftermath of the scandal. Afternoon. We have tea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. After-sales service. I am really pleased with their after-sales service. Afterthought. She added as an afterthought, and call me when you're done. Afterwards. I don't have time now, let's meet afterwards. Again. I don't like Paris, so I won't go there again. Against. We watched England play against France. Agape. John stared at Anne with his mouth agape when she told him she was pregnant. Agate. He bought her an expensive bracelet set with agate. Age. She looks so young that no one can guess her age. Aged. The movie is suitable for children aged 12 and over. Ageism. Ageism is one of the most serious social problems nowadays. Agency. I think that the government agencies should be more independent. Agenda. There were some really important issues on the agenda. Agendize. I decided to agendize one more item for our next meeting. Agent. I've been to the travel agent to book a flight to Hong Kong. Agglomerate. The particles may agglomerate into larger units. Aggrandize. The two kings in succession managed to aggrandize the state. Aggravate. The drug didn't help, but it only aggravated the pain. Aggregate. They got an aggregate of 212 votes. Aggregation. This application can be used for aggregation of data and statistical analyses. Aggression. We don't know whether violent video games can encourage aggression in children. Aggressive. You need to be more aggressive to succeed as a businessman. Aggrieved. He felt aggrieved when he learned about her promotion. Aghast. We were aghast at the sight of a bear in the middle of the town. Agile. Although she's 80, she still has an incredibly agile mind. Agility. The crocodile can catch its prey with unexpected agility. Agio. You will need to pay an agio of £20. Agitate. Teachers were agitating for higher pay. Agitated. He looked very agitated, so I asked him what had happened. Agitation. He is in a state of great agitation. Aglow. They walk down the street aglow with neon signs. Agnostic. She described her religious affiliation as agnostic. Ago. I was born 20 years ago. Agog. She was agog over the inauguration ball. Agonize. He spent days agonizing about whether he should tell the truth. Agonizing. The agonizing feeling was slowly wearing off. Agonism. Agonism's advocates doubt the capacity of politics to eliminate deep social divisions. Agonistic. Threat and attack are examples of agonistic behavior. Agony. It was an agony not knowing what was happening to him. Agrarian. This region is mainly agrarian. Fields comprise over 70% of its area. Agree. You're right, I agree with you. Agreeable. It was a really agreeable evening. Agreed. We can't change the agreed price. Agreement. The agreement satisfied both sides. Agrestic. She liked the agrestic simplicity of the house. Agricultural. Modern agricultural methods change farming into a business. Agriculture. Less than half of the land is used for agriculture. Agro-industry. Chinese agro-industry has rapidly developed for the past decades. Agronomist. The soil samples are going to be analyzed by a team of agronomists. Agronomy. Last year he received a degree in agronomy. Ahead. The car moved ahead slowly. Aid. He couldn't walk without the aid of a cane. AIDA. The AIDA model is used by many ad agencies. Ail. What's ailing you? Is it your hip again? Ailment. You shouldn't treat minor ailments with antibiotics. Aim. His aim was to become a doctor. Air. Open the windows and let some fresh air in. Air conditioner. It's so hot in here. The air conditioner is out of order again. Air conditioning. We should install air conditioning in our office. Air Force. Using the Air Force was necessary. Air hostess. When I was younger, I wanted to be an air hostess. Airborne. Airborne pollutants covered the whole area after explosion. Air-conditioned. Working in air-conditioned rooms can be harmful to your health. Airfare. The airfares are going up again. Air freight. Will the goods be transported by air freight? Airing. It's a pity that the problem of unemployment wasn't given an airing during the campaign. Airline. Which airline did you choose? Airliner. The airliner passed the information to the controllers at the airport. Airmail. Please send this letter by airmail. Airport. Heathrow is the biggest airport in Britain. Airtight. Coffee should be stored in an airtight container. Airtime. His show got less airtime than last year. Airworthy. I ensure you that all our airplanes are airworthy. Aisle. I like sitting next to the window, so I'd rather not take the aisle seat. Ajar. The door was ajar, so I decided to enter. Akin. The plant is akin to the tomato but has bigger fruit. Alabaster. The girl had flawless alabaster skin. Alacrity. He accepted the offer to share the expenses with alarming alacrity. Alarm. They ran away in alarm. Alarm bell. If you hear the alarm bell, run to the emergency exit. Alarm clock. Could you set the alarm clock, please? Alarmed. I was alarmed by the state of her health. Albatross. Albatrosses can fly long distances without flapping their wings. Album. The album contained my parents' wedding photos. Alchemy. One of the main aims of alchemy was to turn lead into gold. Alcopop. Alcopops are becoming increasingly popular among young people. Alcove. The cupboard is set inside an alcove. Alert. The police were put on full alert after receiving reports of planned terrorist attacks. Alias. She wrote under the alias Amanda Griss. Alien. Illegal aliens have become a serious problem. Alienate. She alienated her friends when she became fanatically religious. Alienated. We live in an age of rootless alienated people. Align. Align the hinge on the door with the hinge on the frame. Alignment. The eclipse is caused by the alignment of the sun, moon, and earth. Alike. They think alike. Alimentary canal. Joanna has a very sensitive alimentary canal, so her diet is strict. Alimony. He never pays the alimony regularly. Alive. The nerve is no longer alive. Alkali. Ammonia is a strong alkali. All. We ate all the food. Allay. The news allayed my conscience. Allegation. The politician denied the allegations of corruption. Allege. They allege that the police forced them to sign. Alleged. She informed the police about the alleged murder plan. Allegiance. Don't forget you owe allegiance to your country. Allegory. Moby Dick can be read as an allegory of human struggle with evil. Allegro. The composer was known for his allegros and adagios. Allergic. The doctor said that the rash was an allergic reaction to nuts. Allergy. I developed an allergy to milk and I can't eat ice cream now. Alleviate. A new drug to alleviate the symptoms of pneumonia has been designed. Alley. The alley led to a wider street. Alliance. The two parties formed an alliance. Allies. China officially joined the Allies after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Alligator. These swamps are full of alligators. All-in. The all-in rate for this package is £75. Alliteration. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers is an example of alliteration. Allocate. I'm allocating the rations for the trip. Allocation. This year's allocation of funds to local schools raised everyone's concerns. Allonge. Did you notice any allonges attached there? Allopathy. An example of allopathy is treatment of pain using painkillers. Allot. Each worker will be allotted a uniform. Allotment. I'm not happy with the allotment of funds you suggest. Allow. I cannot allow you to see your exam. Allowance. What is the luggage allowance for this flight? Alloy. Brass is an alloy of zinc and copper. All-round. She's an all-round player. Allude. He alluded to the problem but didn't mention it directly. Allure. Many people get deceived by the allure of working in television. Allurement. The swimming pool is the main allurement of the hotel. Allusion. Although he didn't mention her directly, he made several allusions to her. Alluvial. Alluvial plains around the river are a haven for wildlife. Alluvium. Gold was often found in alluvium, which is commonly displayed in films about the Wild West and the Gold Rush. Ally. During the Second World War, Italy was an ally of Germany. Almond. Sprinkle the top of the cake with chopped almonds. Almost. I was so afraid that I almost died. Alms. Giving alms to the poor was thought to be one of religious duties. Aloft. Collocation, to hold bear something aloft. Alone. I like living alone. Along. We drove along admiring the view. Alongside. She was riding a bike and he was walking alongside. Aloof. He seemed rather aloof. He never even asked me how I was doing. Aloud. Please read the passage aloud. Alpha girl. She was an alpha girl who liked to be in the spotlight no matter what happened. Alphabet. The child learned the alphabet really quickly. Alphabetical. Words in dictionaries are usually arranged in alphabetical order. Already. Let's go. We are already late. All right. All right, I agree. Also. He is tired and he is also hungry. Altar. The picture showed a lamb being sacrificed on an altar. Alter. The discussion has altered my thinking about that issue. Alter ego. Victorian literature presents numerous alter egos, one of the most famous being Dr. Jekyll's Mr. Hyde. Alteration. I've made a few alterations to your project. Altercation. They had an altercation over who would take the car. Alternate. Periods of good mood alternated with depression. Alternative. What is the best alternative? Although. He decided to go, although I begged him not to. Altitude. The pilot said we were flying at an altitude of 30,000 feet. Altogether. That'll be 30 pounds altogether. Altruism. There are many volunteers that help the homeless out of sheer altruism. Altruistic. I don't believe his motives were altruistic. I bet he wants something in return. Aluminium. He used cheap aluminium cutlery. Alumnus. Irregular plural, alumni. Always. Whatever I say, he always disagrees. Am. I have breakfast at 7 a.m. every day. Amalgam. His theory was an amalgam of earlier ideas. Amalgamate. The two companies are expected to amalgamate soon. Amalgamator. She was offered a job of an amalgamator. Amanuensis. Irregular plural, amanuensis. Amaretto. You can sprinkle the dessert with amaretto. Amass. Files keep amassing on my desk. Amateur. Both amateurs and professionals can take part in the competition. Amateurish. They did a very amateurish job. Amaze. He amazed everyone by leaving the country all of a sudden. Amazed. The amazed audience gave him a standing ovation. Amazing. It's amazing how annoying he can be. Ambassador. She has been an ambassador for over 15 years. Ambidextrous. Approximately 10% of the population is left-handed or ambidextrous. Ambience. The pub has a pleasant and welcoming ambience. Ambient. The ambient air dryer circulates 20 times more air to dry clothes without using heat. Ambiguity. There are some ambiguities in your thesis. Ambiguous. I'm frustrated by your ambiguous instructions. Ambit. The committee will review any matter that falls within its ambit. Ambition. Her ambition is to start her own business. Ambitious. She's really ambitious. She wants to be a famous writer. Ambivalence. He had ambivalence towards plastic surgery. He really wasn't sure what to think of it. Ambivalent. They are still ambivalent about having children. Amble. There's nothing I enjoy more than a pleasant amble through the woods. Ambrosia. In Greek mythology, mortals who ate ambrosia became immortal. Ambulance. John was injured, so we had to call an ambulance. Ambulatory. The palace complex has an ambulatory and 7 chapels. Ambush. The police waited in ambush outside the smuggler's hideaway. Ameliorate. We have raised £200,000 to ameliorate the effects of famine. Amenable. He's always been an amenable child. I've never had problems with him. Amend. These regulations need to be amended. Amendment. The book needed several amendments. Amends. How can I make amends for the worry I've caused you? Amenities. Where can I find the nearest public amenities? Amenity. Hotel amenities include a swimming pool, bar and sauna. American. She has been teaching American English for 20 years now. Amethyst. She had a gold necklace set with amethyst. Amiable. I'm sure you'll like this amiable young man. Amicable. Divorces are rarely amicable. Amid. On his desk, amid books and papers, there was the file we'd been looking for. Amino acid. Proteins are composed of various proportions of 20 amino acids. Amiss. Don't take it amiss, I didn't mean it. Amity. The now quarreled countries used to live in perfect amity for many years. Ammunition. They had to surrender due to a shortage of ammunition. Amnesia. After the accident, he suffered periods of amnesia. Amnesty. The new government granted an amnesty for all political prisoners. Among. I like being among friends. Amoral. Beware of him, he's a completely immoral person. Amorous. The lovers exchanged amorous glances. Amorphous. We could see amorphous clouds of insects. Amortize. The debt was amortized over 5 years. Amount. The amount he had in cash was insufficient. Ampersand. Only after years of using the ampersand did I manage to learn to write it properly by hand. Amphibian. Frogs and toads are examples of amphibians. Amphibious. Our army has many amphibious vehicles for possible conditions. Ample. He had ample food for the party. Amplification. I won't answer to any questions as I believe my statement needs no amplification. Amplify. The stories about plane crashes only amplified his fear. Amputate. The finger had to be amputated due to infection. Amulet. He believed the amulet would protect him from demons. Amuse. The clown amused the children. Amused. I've brought some puzzles to keep the children amused. Amusing. He used to tell really amusing stories that made everybody laugh. Anachronism. They don't want to get married, claiming that marriage is an anachronism. Anemia. The deficiency of vitamin B12 led to chronic anemia. Anesthesia. She thinks that anesthesia during childbirth is not necessary. Anesthetic. How long before the operation should the anesthetic be given? Anesthetist. The anesthetist administered an excessive dose and the patient died during the operation. Analgesia. The woman was given analgesia and assisted by the nurses to change her position in bed. Analgesic. Paracetamol is a popular analgesic. Analogous. Spain's experience of terrorism is analogous to that of the UK. Analogy. The operation of a computer presents an interesting analogy to the working of the brain. Analyze. The water samples will be analyzed for contamination. Analysis. We need a detailed analysis of this problem. Analysis paralysis. The counterproductive system has led to analysis paralysis. Analytical. She has a very analytical mind. She's good at solving even difficult problems. Anaphora. Charles Dickens is well known for his use of anaphora. Anarchic. This system is economically inefficient and politically anarchic. Anarchist. He's an anarchist and claims that the government should be abolished. Anarchy. The Prime Minister failed to form a government and the country is in danger of falling into anarchy. Anathema. Her political views are anathema to me. Anatomy. An understanding of human anatomy is essential to a painter. Ancestor. Ancestors of birds were closely related to dinosaurs. Anchor. 3 ships were anchored in the harbor. Anchorite. The hut was built to house an anchorite. Ancient. In her term paper she analyzed ancient civilizations such as those of the Etruscans and Sumerians. Ancillary. We need also to discuss several ancillary matters. And. I'll be singing and dancing at the wedding. Andiron. The andirons were too hot to touch. Andragogy. The theory of andragogy was based on the differences between children and adult learners. Anecdotal. Her theory was criticized for being based on anecdotal evidence rather than careful research. Anecdote. Everyone knows the anecdote about Newton watching an apple falling from a tree. Anger. The plans have created widespread public anger. Angle. The interior angles of a rectangle are right angles. Angry. Don't be angry over such trivial matters. Anguish. She could not stand the anguish of not knowing what had happened to her husband. Anguished. We heard someone's anguished cry for help. Angular. Cubist paintings are full of angular shapes. Animadversion. The senator received severe animadversion from his opponent. Animadvert. He animadverted severely on their conduct. Animal. The blue whale is the world's largest living animal. Animate. A smile animated her face for a second. Animated. The controversial film was followed by an animated discussion. Animated cartoon. My children like watching animated cartoons during breakfast time. Animation. They used computer animation in some scenes. Animosity. He felt strong animosity towards his teachers. Animus. She said she had no animus towards Peter. Ankle. My ankle hurts. Annals. The fall of Rome was one of the most important events in the annals of Europe. Annex. Denmark annexed Norway along with Faroe Islands. Annex. They've built an annex to the library to keep the most valuable books. Annihilate. The city of Hiroshima was annihilated by an atomic bomb. Anniversary. The company celebrated its 50th anniversary. Annotate. This edition of Hamlet has been annotated so that understanding of the text is easier. Annotation. He added a short annotation to the article. Announce. The President announced war. Announcement. The President made an unexpected announcement this morning. Annoy. It annoys me that she never closes the door. Annoyed. He was annoyed by her stupid questions. Annual. The concert has become an annual event. Annual report. The annual report will be presented at the meeting. Annuitant. He has been an annuitant since 1990. Annuity. His annuity is rather small. Annul. The contract was annulled. Anode. The battery contains a lithium anode. Anodyne. It usually takes 20 to 30 minutes for the anodyne to start working. Anomalous. It is anomalous that women in this company receive less money than men. Anomaly. In this country, a woman politician is still an anomaly. Anonymize. Anonymize on computer forums are a real plague. Anonymity. According to one employee who wanted to preserve their anonymity, the conditions are appalling. Anonymous. We've received an anonymous donation of £100,000. Anorexia. Anorexia is a serious health problem, but some people consider it a lifestyle. Another. Would you like another drink? Answer. The answer to these questions was obvious. Answer phone. I left a message on his answer phone, but he didn't call me back. Antagonism. The antagonism between the government and the president is not good for the country. Antagonist. It doesn't seem likely that the antagonists in the dispute are going to compromise. Antagonistic. He's very conservative, he's always antagonistic to new ideas. Antarctic. Penguins live mostly in the Antarctic. Antecedents. The antecedents of this event to his election is doubtful. Antecedent. What were the historical antecedents of the war? Antedate. Stone tools antedate bronze tools. Antediluvian. My father has antediluvian ideas about marriage. Antenna. Irregular plural, antennae. Antenuptial. Did you sign an antenuptial contract before you married Jeff? Anterior. The insect's anterior wings are much bigger than the posterior ones. Anthem. God Save the Queen is the national anthem of the United Kingdom. Anthology. Have you read the new anthology of Welsh poetry? Anthropoid. Anthropoid apes have highly developed brains. Anthropologist. According to anthropologists, the human race comes from Africa. Anthropology. Archaeology is one of the three major subdisciplines of anthropology. Anthropomorphic. The fairy tale writer gave anthropomorphic features to all his animal characters. Antibiotic. Streptomycin and tetracycline are examples of antibiotics. Antibody. The vaccine induces antibodies against the virus. Antic. He writes with an antic, often surreal sense of humor. Anticipate. The meteorologists are anticipating reduced rainfall. Anticipation. Each of them had their own anticipations. Anticipatory. We decided to take anticipatory measures. Anticlimax. The bribe affair was the anticlimax of his brilliant career. Anti-clockwise. You need to turn the dial anti-clockwise. Antics. I can't stand his antics any longer. Anti-establishmentarianism. In Ireland, the anti-establishmentarianism movement eventually failed. Antidote. Before setting off, we should buy an antidote to a rattlesnake bite. Antigen. Even low levels of this antigen can induce strong immune responses. Antiquated. This law is antiquated and should have been changed a long time ago. Antique. She collects antiques. Antiquity. Satyr plays were very popular in antiquity. Anti-rube. Maybe I wouldn't call myself an anti-rube, but I like to be up to date with the newest trends. Antiseptic. Before giving an injection, sterilize the skin using antiseptic. Antithesis. Irregular plural antitheses. Antithetic. Hope is antithetic to despair. Antler. Deer shed their antlers annually. Antonym. Light and dark, day and night, high and low are all pairs of antonyms. Anvil. The blacksmith placed the blade on the anvil. Anxiety. She felt a lot of anxiety about the first day of her new job. Anxious. I'm anxious to see his new film. Any. Have you got any coffee? Anyhow. They came anyhow they could. Anyone. It could happen to anyone. Anything. I can't see anything except the mist. Anyway. Anyway, enough of that. Anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Aorta. The man died due to a ruptured aorta. Apart. These towns are many miles apart. Apart from. We haven't informed anyone yet apart from the boss. Apart block. We live in a big apartment block. Apartment building. In this district there are no houses, only massive apartment buildings. Apathetic. After rejection of several of his projects, he became apathetic about his job. Apathy. The referendum failed because of voter apathy. Ape. When we were at the zoo, we saw chimpanzees, gorillas and other apes. Aperitif. This sherry is best served chilled as an aperitif. Aperture. It's really dark here. If you want to take a photo, you'll have to set the aperture. Apex. Irregular plural apexes, apices. Aphasia. Very often, aphasia results from lesions to the language-relevant parts of the brain. Aphorism. A man can't be too careful in the choice of his enemies is one of Oscar Wilde's famous aphorisms. Aphotic. The ecosystem is located in the aphotic depths of the sea where no photosynthesis occurs. Apiary. It is the largest apiary and honey producer in the country. Apiculture. Apiculture is one of the country's most important agricultural sectors. Apiece. They receive £10 apiece. Apitherapy. Honey, pollen and propolis are often used in apitherapy. Aplomb. She handled all the questions with great aplomb. Apocalyptic. The film depicts an apocalyptic vision of the future. Apocrypha. The Russian Orthodox Church accepts the Apocrypha as divinely inspired. Apocryphal. It's one of many apocryphal stories about the president. Apogee. Her scientific career reached its apogee in the 1980s. Apologetic. He gave me an apologetic smile and began to clean up the broken vase. Apologetics. He couldn't listen to the cynical and cringing apologetics of those who failed to follow the rules. Apologia. The author's memoirs constitute a kind of apologia for his lifestyle. Apologize. I apologize to her for my behavior. Apologue. The City Rat and Field Rat is a famous apologue written by Horace. Apology. He wrote a letter of apology to the hostess. Apoplectic. His dad was apoplectic with rage when he saw the car. Apoplexy. He had suffered from a nervous disease which finally ended in apoplexy. Apostasy. Some members of the Jewish community chose apostasy over death. Apostate. The members of the sect were treated as heretics and apostates. Apostrophe. You mustn't omit the apostrophe in the contracted forms of cannot or has not. Apothecary. An apothecary prepared a special ointment for me. Apothegm. My grandpa knows numerous Latin apothegms. Apotheosis. The painting showed the apotheosis of Julius Caesar. Apple. The tremendous state of the bathroom appalled her. Appalled. Many people are appalled at the way those animals were treated. Appalling. The film was absolutely appalling. Apparatus. Before diving, always check your breathing apparatus. Apparel. She was very careful in her choice of apparel and people considered her fashionable. Apparent. She looked very weak and it was apparent to everyone she would die soon. Apparently. Apparently they decided to go somewhere else. Apparition. They witnessed a ghostly apparition at midnight. Appeal. He was found guilty but appealed immediately. Appealing. The idea of going to Portugal is very appealing. Appear. He suddenly appeared at the wedding. Appearance. She is always criticizing her husband's appearance. Appearances. Be careful with that girl. Appearances can be deceptive. Appease. It seems that the new law was only meant to appease the public, not to really improve the situation. Appeasement. Appeasement of the dictator may lead to bloodshed in the future. Appellation. Michel de Nostradame is widely known by his Latinized appellation Nostradamus. Append. He appended a glossary to the book. Appendage. After the accident he had bruises on every visible appendage. Appendix. Irregular plural appendices. Appetizing. We were served some particularly appetizing dessert. Appetite. They have an incredible appetite for knowledge. Applaud. I applaud your efforts. Apple. Which one do you prefer, an apple or an orange? Apple pie. Americans usually eat apple pie hot with ice cream. Appliance. I'm afraid there won't be enough room for all the appliances in your kitchen. Applicable. The offer is only applicable to transactions exceeding £50. Applicant. There were many applicants for this job. Application. A novel application of electronics to medical diagnosis. Application form. You have to fill an application form for a passport. Applied. I'm studying applied linguistics. Apply. Sometimes it is difficult to apply these ideas in practice. Appoint. She was appointed team manager. Appointment. We've got a doctor's appointment on Thursday. Apportion. The costs were equally apportioned between us. Apposite. I would like to present 2 essays that are apposite to the present discussion. Appraisal. The magazine gave an appraisal of the government's achievements of the past 2 years. Appraise. The jewels were appraised by a professional. Appraiser. We should have the diamond checked by an appraiser. Appreciable. Appreciable amounts of wastes are dumped into the river. Appreciate. I really appreciate your help. Appreciation. He expressed his appreciation in a short poem written for her. Appreciative. He was appreciative of their help. Apprehend. Do you apprehend the meaning of this letter? Apprehension. He felt a lot of apprehension before starting the new job. Apprehensive. I guess she's a little apprehensive about tomorrow's interview. Apprentice. He works in a shop as an apprentice. Apprise. The Prime Minister has been apprised of the situation. Approach. The hunter's approach frightened the birds. Approachable. He's not the most approachable person you could imagine. Approbation. He claimed he had acted with the approbation of the director. Approbatory. The critic wrote an approbatory review of my film. Appropriate. This film is not appropriate for children. Appropriation. The new school received an appropriation of £3,000. Approval. He gave the project his approval. Approve. She doesn't approve of drinking alcohol. Approximate. The values are only approximate. Approximately. The concert lasted approximately 2 hours. Appurtenance. Books and tons of notes are the essential appurtenances of student life. April. He will come see you on the 3rd of April. Apron. She wiped her hands against her apron. Apt. She's an apt pupil. Aptitude. He has a natural aptitude for learning languages. Aquarium. I've bought a bigger aquarium for my goldfish. Aquatic. Water lilies are aquatic plants. Aqueduct. The aqueducts carried water from the countryside to Rome. Aquiline. He had a big aquiline nose. Arabesque. The interior was decorated with arabesques. Arabian. Arabian countries such as Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, Bahrain and Kuwait have turned out to have less competitive economies than previously expected. Arabic. It's hard to me to live in Egypt because I don't speak Arabic. Arable. He's a rich farmer owning many acres of arable land. Arachnid. He's a real arachnid. He can surf the web 10 hours a day. Arbiter. She was the final arbiter on all matters of fashion. Arbitrage. He earned a lot of money using arbitrage. Arbitrarily. We didn't think much about the name, we chose it arbitrarily. Arbitrary. Truly speaking, we didn't have much time, so it was an arbitrary choice. Arbitrate. He arbitrated in the family dispute. Arbitration. They submitted their disagreement to arbitration. Arbitrator. An arbitrator was chosen to settle the dispute. Arboreal. The woodpecker is an example of arboreal fauna. Arboretum. There are many rare species of trees in this arboretum. Arbor. The arbor provided a shady resting place in the park. Arc. We could see a bright arc between the two electrodes. Arcade. This weekend my wife wants to visit the new shopping arcade in the suburbs. Arcane. I've never managed to master the arcane art of operating this machine. Arch. The trees arched over the alley. Archaeology. She's interested in archaeology, particularly in the ancient history of Egypt. Archaic. It's an archaic law that should be immediately changed. Archer. The archer's hand shivered and he missed the target. Archetype. The United Kingdom is the archetype of a constitutional monarchy. Archipelago. The Cook Islands are an example of an archipelago. Architect. He hired an architect to design his house. Architourist. Barcelona is a perfect place for architourists. Archive. I'll put this photograph to our family archive. Archives. We found this rare documentary in our film archives. Arctic. Hans Island is a small Arctic island situated halfway between Greenland and Ellesmere Island. Ardent. He's an ardent supporter of FC Barcelona. Ardor. It is a story about ardor of young lovers. Arduous. They worked their arduous way up the mining valley. Area. It was a mountainous area. Arena. After 20 years in the political arena, the former prime minister is retiring next year. Argot. Prisoners use a special argot to communicate secretly. Arguable. It is arguable which method is less expensive. Argue. The minister argued that costs must be reduced. Argument. They were involved in a violent argument. Aria. Violetta's aria is my favorite part of Verdi's La Traviata. Arid. Atacama Desert is the most arid region of the planet. Arise. A crisis has arisen in the government. Aristocrat. There were many aristocrats in his family. One of his distant ancestors was even a duke. Arithmancy. He's interested in arithmancy and astrology. Arithmetic. She's really good at arithmetic. Arm. Edwin put his arm round Susan. Armada. The Armada was comprised of 300 ships. Armageddon. This dump is an environmental Armageddon. Armament. In the risk of war, the country is spending more money on armament. Armaments. The army was equipped with cluster bombs, mines, grenades and other armaments. Armchair. He was sitting in the armchair by the fire. Armful. She brought an armful of wood. Armistice. The two countries declared a 3-week armistice in order to talk about peace terms. Armor. The armadillo's armor protects the animal from bites. Army. My son is in the army. Aroma. I love the aroma of coffee with cardamom. Aromatic. I use a lot of basil, marjoram and other aromatic herbs. Around. This snake is around 3 meters long. Arousal. People rarely think rationally when they're in a state of sexual arousal. Arouse. Her first novel aroused a lot of interest. Aroused. She felt aroused by the touch of his hands on her body. Arraign. He was arraigned on a charge of murder. Arrange. He arranges his books on the shelves in alphabetical order. Arrangement. They made arrangements to meet in Tokyo. Errand. He is an errand fool. Array. There was an impressive array of exotic food on the table. Arrear. The rent is 2 months in arrears. Arrears. The landlord sent a reminder saying that the rent money was 3 months in arrears. Arrest. He was arrested for drug possession. Arrival. They awaited her arrival. Arrive. She arrived home at 7 o'clock. Arrogance. His behavior was sheer arrogance. Arrogant. He's an arrogant and rude individual. Arrogate. They arrogate to themselves the power to punish people without trial. Arrow. He drew a huge arrow on the board pointing at the word where. Arsenal. The troops attacked the enemy's arsenal. Arsenic. They poisoned him by adding arsenic to his meal. Arson. The cinema was destroyed in an arson attack. Arsonist. The police suspect that all fires were started by the same arsonist. Art. It's a unique work of art. Artifact. The museum sports ancient Egyptian artifacts. Arteriosclerosis. High cholesterol levels early in life may cause arteriosclerosis later on. Artery. Blockage of the coronary arteries may cause a heart attack. Arthritis. My grandma suffers from arthritis and has problems walking. Article. The newspaper article criticized the company. Articled. He is articled to a big company in New York. Articulate. The TH sound may be difficult to articulate for English learners. Articulation. The articulation of your thoughts is sometimes very difficult. Artifice. That was clearly an artifice to get around the regulations. Artificial. She bought some artificial flowers to decorate the room. Artillery. The general ordered the artillery to fire. Artist. He was a famous artist in the 1960s. Artistic. There were mixed opinions on the artistic merit of her paintings. Artless. I was disarmed by her artless honesty. Arty. She's one of those arty types that talk only about new exhibitions. Arty-farty. I'm tired of his arty-farty friends and their chatter about art and exhibitions. As. He is as good as you are at using computers. As well. Invite your brothers and sisters and cousins as well. As well as. We have a house in the country as well as a flat in London. Ascend. She had difficulty ascending the stairs because of her arthritis. Ascendancy. He is gaining ascendancy in the party. Ascend. This was the route used for the first ascent of Mont Blanc. Ascertain. We need to ascertain whether it is true. Ascetic. He lived as an ascetic in a simple hut in the mountains. Asceticism. He wasn't prepared for the asceticism of monastic life. Ascribe. This quotation is often ascribed to Shakespeare. Aseptic. The instruments should be handled using aseptic technique. Ashamed. Are you ashamed for having laid? Ashen. Her ashen complexion indicated some illness. Ashore. We invited them ashore. Ashram. Traditionally, ashrams were located in forests or mountains away from human habitations. Asian. Many restaurants and bars in London are run by Asians. Asinine. What an asinine question. Ask. He had to ask directions several times. Askable parent. My father was hardly an askable parent. We never talked about serious matters. Asleep. We were all asleep when the phone rang. Asocial. Should asocial people be integrated into the society or left alone? Asparagus. We ordered asparaguses with lemon sauce. Aspect. What aspect of your work do you like most? Asperity. How long am I supposed to be waiting? She asked with asperity. Aspersion. He cast aspersions on the president in order to discredit him. Asphalt. They are finally going to cover the road with asphalt. Asphyxia. Stings in the throat may cause swelling leading to asphyxia. Asphyxiate. The murderer used a pillow to asphyxiate the victim. Asphyxiation. The victim died of asphyxiation after his head had been covered with a plastic bag. Aspirant. There were many aspirants to his seat. Aspiration. He claimed he'd never had any political aspirations, yet he decided to run for mayor. Aspire. This area aspires to the status of nature reserve. Aspirin. Young children shouldn't take aspirin. Aspiring. The publishing house is looking for aspiring young writers. Assail. She was assailed by fears. Assailant. The assailant fled in a stolen sports car. Assassin. An unknown assassin shot the president dead. Assassinate. The police have unearthed a plot to assassinate the prime minister. Assassination. After the assassination of the president, the country fell into anarchy. Assault. He was charged with sexual assault on 4 women. Assay. The laboratory performs assays for the detection of bacteria and viruses in water samples. Assemblage. The forest is inhabited by a varied assemblage of birds. Assemble. We assembled in the conference room. Assembly. You will find instructions for assembly in the manual. Assembly line. We need to hire more assembly line workers. Assembly plant. The company has opened a new assembly plant. Assembly point. Our assembly point will be the market square. Assent. He gave his assent eagerly. Assert. She asserts that he robbed her. Assertion. The facts offer no support for her assertions. Assertive. If you want to be a good salesman, you have to be more assertive. Assess. Our house hasn't been assessed in years. Assessment. I'm not sure if it's the right assessment of the situation. Asset. Honesty is an important asset of a good employee. Asset stripping. The company has made huge profits by asset stripping. Asseverate. He asseverated that he had never seen that man. Assiduity. He's a man of great assiduity and determination. Assiduous. I admire her assiduous attempts to learn French. Assign. His property was assigned to his daughter. Assignee. The rights were transferred to the assignee. Assignment. He went to Italy on an important assignment. Assignor. Assimilate. Many immigrants don't know English and find it difficult to assimilate into the British society. Assist. Can you assist me with carrying the equipment? Assistance. He offered me assistance with the housework. Assistant. They hired another assistant to finish the work. Associate. The brand isn't usually associated with high quality. Associated. Bad breath is one of dental problems associated with smoking cigarettes. Association. He joined our association 2 years ago. Assort. How would you assort the species? Assorted. We offer assorted flavors of tea and coffee. Assortment. We offer a great assortment of cars. Assuage. Nothing could assuage her guilt, so finally she admitted committing the crime. Assume. Let's assume that what he is saying is true. Assumption. Your assumption that he would agree was wrong. Assurance. It's impossible, he said with assurance. Assure. Preparation will assure success. Assured. Working as a clerk, he has a tiny but assured income. Astern. Ships with square sails sail fairly efficiently with the wind astern. Asteroid. The main plot of the film centers around a huge asteroid heading towards the Earth. Asthma. My brother has suffered from severe asthma since birth. Astigmatic. Astigmatic aberrations of the eye can sometimes be corrected surgically. Astigmatism. Astigmatism is common in short-sighted people. Astonish. His sudden decision to leave the country completely astonished me. Astonished. We were astonished by the vastness of the cathedral. Astound. Your ability to speak so many languages astounds me. Astounded. He was astounded by her beauty. Astounding. Such an enormous response to our appeal was astounding. Astray. The letter went astray in the post. Astringent. The doctor used a strong astringent to stop the bleeding. Astrolabe. Brass astrolabes were invented in the medieval Islamic world. Astrology. He's really interested in astrology and reads horoscopes every day. Astronaut. Alan Shepard was the first American astronaut launched into space. Astronomer. Astronomers have discovered traces of water on Mars. Astronomical. The telescope invented by Galileo in 1609 was the first astronomical instrument. Astronomical body. This article is about the origin of planets and other astronomical bodies. Astronomy. He'd been always interested in the stars and planets, so he chose to study astronomy. Astute. He's an astute investor that never gets deceived. Ascender. The shirt was torn asunder. Asylum. He went mad and spent the rest of his life in asylum. Asymmetrical. She had a trendy asymmetrical haircut, very short on the one side, long on the other. At. I was waiting at the bus stop. At all. It doesn't matter at all. At call. He borrowed a large sum of money at call. At last. At last the winter was over. At once. He answered at once. At par. The banknotes were sold at par. At present. He is busy at present writing a new novel. Atavism. The doctors blame atavism for my daughter's disease since her grandma had the same illness. Atelier. He never lets anyone into his atelier before he finishes his work. Atheism. At that time, declaring atheism was an act of great courage. Atheist. He's an atheist, he's never belonged to any church or religious group. Athlete. She's a very talented athlete. Athletics. He is really good at athletics. Athwart. The sun shone athwart into his face. Atlantic. The Titanic sank in the Atlantic Ocean, having covered half of her transatlantic crossing. Atlas. We forgot to take a road atlas and got lost somewhere in the countryside. Atmosphere. There was an atmosphere of excitement. Atmospheric. The paint is resistant to corrosion and atmospheric conditions. Atom. One molecule of water has 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Atonal. Berg's was the first atonal opera. Atone. He wanted to atone for his wrongdoings. Atonement. This gift was an atonement for his wrongdoing. Atrocious. Murder is an atrocious crime. Atrocity. In his book, he describes atrocities of war. Atrophy. Those exercises are to prevent atrophy of the muscles during space flights. Attach. She attached a photo to her application. Attached. He's very attached to his old car and doesn't want to change it. Attachment. The vacuum cleaner has a special attachment to clean furniture. Attack. Attacks on women increased last year. Attain. I attain my goal despite all the setbacks. Attainable. You need to choose an attainable goal. Attainment. Their cultural attainments are remarkable. Attempt. He made several attempts to repair the car. Attend. She attends class regularly. Attendance. A student's attendance is an important factor in their grade. Attendant. The museum attendant told the children not to touch the paintings. Attention. The lecture requires your complete attention. Attentive. A good proofreader must be attentive to details. Attentively. The children watch the film attentively. Attenuate. The gamma radiation is strongly attenuated by the thick layer of this material. Attest. He attested the signature. Attic. The attic is full of boxes of old clothes and toys. Attire. Such a short dress isn't appropriate attire for a funeral. Attitude. He had the attitude that work was fun. Attorney. We need to find a good attorney to win this case. Attract. This pianist attracts huge crowds. Attraction. Gravitational attraction keeps the planets in orbit about the Sun. Attractive. She is a very attractive woman. Attributable. The success is attributable to the whole team. Attribute. This sentence is attributed to Shakespeare. Attribution. He disagrees with the attribution of global warming to human influence. Attrition. The countries fought a war of attrition against their enemy in order to force it to accept their terms. Attune. The mankind will have to attune to the demands of nature. Atypical. It's a group that is atypical of the target audience. Au pair. She was an au pair in London. Auction. We will sell this sculpture at an auction. Audacious. It was a risky and audacious plan. Audacity. He had the audacity to question my decision. Audible. He was so weak that his voice was barely audible. Audience. The audience applauded. Audioblog. You can download free MP3s from the band's audioblog. Audioblogger. Audiobloggers illegally publishing music are a serious problem. Audit. Our company will have an audit this month. Audition. I've got an audition for the part of Hamlet on Monday. Auditor. The external auditors visit our company at the end of every financial year. Auditorium. Irregular plural, auditoriums, auditoria. Auditory. The auditory tube connects the middle ear and the throat. Auger. He damaged the auger when it hit some hard rock in the ground. Augment. She took an additional job to augment her income. Augmentation. Administering the drug resulted in the augmentation of blood flow. Augury. He thought it was an augury of a horrible disaster. August. Tourism in Spain is at its peak in August. Aunt. I have an aunt in Australia. Aura. The old factory had an aura of mystery. Aureole. Her hair seemed to frame her face in a golden aureole. Auricular. Auricular acupuncture is widely used in Eastern medicine. Aurora australis. The aurora australis is often seen in the Antarctic region. Aurora borealis. The aurora borealis is a common phenomenon in Greenland. Auscultation. During auscultation he could hear squeaks and crackles over the posterior lung lobes. Auspice. She took that as an auspice of good luck. Auspices. The tournament was held under the auspices of the City Council. Auspicious. Her first solo album went platinum, which was an auspicious beginning. Austere. After the furniture was removed, the interior looked very austere. Austerity. The war was a time of great austerity. Australian. She's an Australian living in Canberra. Auteurist. We all know the director for her truly remarkable auteurist films. Authentic. The witness gave an authentic account of what had happened. Authenticate. They used DNA tests to authenticate the claim that the victims were related. Author. She is a famous horror author. Authorization. He acted without the director's authorization. Authorize. This decision needs to be authorized. Authorized. You will need to contact an authorized customer service representative. Authoritative. His authoritative manner makes it difficult to disagree with him. Authorities. The authorities should do something about unemployment. Authority. The Prime Minister has the authority to make key decisions concerning the country. Autism. The young boy was diagnosed with autism. Autobiography. He decided to write an autobiography in which he described his political career. Autocracy. The reign of czars such as Nicholas I is a good example of autocracy. Autocrat. The king removed the government, thus becoming an autocrat. Automated. The process will be fully automated, so we won't have to hire additional workers. Automatic. They installed automatic doors in the building. Automatically. He answered automatically. Automation. Automation reduced the number of workers in our factory. Automatism. He studied the relationship between epileptic automatism and violence. Automaton. Irregular plural, automata, automatons. Automobile. He works in the automobile industry, so he knows everything about cars. Autonomous. Madeira is an autonomous region of Portugal. Autonomy. The campaigners demand greater autonomy for the region. Autopathography. He called the book a cheap autopathography. Autopsy. The autopsy showed numerous bruises and other signs of continual beating. Autumn. The leaves turn yellow in autumn. Auxiliary. I'm not a skilled nurse, I'm just a semi-skilled auxiliary. Auxin. The students are examining the influence of auxins on routing. Avail. He availed himself of every opportunity. Availability. Could you check the availability of the tickets for tonight? Available. I'm afraid there are no seats available. Avalanche. 3 mountain hikers were killed in the avalanche. Avant-garde. The controversial writer was a member of the Parisian avant-garde. Avarice. The rich old man was known for his avarice. Avaricious. They are avaricious and will do anything for money. Avenge. He wants to avenge the murder of his brother. Aver. She's innocent, I tell you, he averred. Average. She is about average in weight. Averse. I'm not averse to swimming, actually, I like it a lot. Aversion. I take the evening shifts as I have a strong aversion to getting up early. Avert. He averted his eyes as she changed. Aviary. The hens were kept in a large aviary, but they managed to find a way out. Aviation. He'd been always interested in aviation, so it's not surprising he became a pilot. Avid. He's an avid football fan, he can't miss a single match. Avidity. All the contestants displayed a high degree of avidity during the competition. Avocation. Her career is accounting, but her avocation is dancing. Avoid. Her former friends avoid her now. Avouch. She avouched in court that he was innocent. Avow. He avowed his commitment to Islam. Avowal. He was imprisoned for his avowal of anti-government beliefs. Avowed. As an avowed atheist, he is against any form of religion. Avuncular. He gave me an avuncular pat on the shoulder. Await. We were awaiting our relatives at the station. Awake. He awoke to the sound of the alarm clock. Award. He criticized the award of compensation by the court. Aware. I am aware of the difficulties. Awareness. He had no awareness of his mistakes. Away. He is far away. Awe. We gazed at the magnificent cathedral in awe. Awe-inspiring. The pyramids are a truly awe-inspiring sight. Awesome. I hope that you know it's an awesome responsibility. Awful. The weather was awful. Awkward. He arrived at an awkward time. Awl. He pierced the letter with an awl, but unfortunately it got too big. Awning. It started raining, so we hid under the shop's awning. Awry. Despite all the preparations, the whole plan went awry. Axe. The heavy axe was hard to use. Axiom. It's an axiom that motivated employees produce better work. Axiomatic. We hold these truths to be axiomatic. Axis. Irregular plural, axes. Axle. The rear axle got bent in the accident. Azimuth. The binoculars can be moved freely in any direction in altitude and also in azimuth. Azure. We were staring at the clear azure sky.